welcome to Office Hours Stag Radios podcast, where we take a step beyond the lecture theatre and into the lives of the lecturers that inspire our experiences. Today I am joined by
Dr. Luciella Rose.
So to start off, I kind of wanted to go beyond the teaching, before publishing, before all of that. So what was something that hooked you about your subject, something that you loved about it and made you think, this is what I want to do for my career?
I think, so I did a BA at Sussex, Sussex University. And then I just felt like there was more I wanted to investigate. I kind of see it as an investigational thing, like diving into literature, into visual culture, into understanding people, understanding the world, understanding cultures. There's so much that I experienced through literature and visual culture that I just felt like I wanted to continue that. I wasn't finished. And at a MA level at Sussex particularly, I got really into sexual politics, sexual dissidence, as it was registered and interrogated in literary and visual culture. And visual culture was a really big part of that. And I could just see it feeding into my everyday life in marketing, in advertisements, in the way women's bodies were represented. And it was such a central part of my own thinking. And I was learning so much from it. I just thought, this is for me. This is what I want to do. Yeah. And I had such a fire for it and a passion for it that just kept me going. And then I went on to do a PhD and I never left. Sorry. So, yeah.
Is that what your research is based on? That's still what you do to now?
Yeah. So I work on Victorian feminisms, literary and visual culture. So it's very interdisciplinary what I do, but I specialise in early feminism, women's suffrage, the new woman, women's networks and creative partnerships. So tracing feminism back to its roots in the Victorian period is basically what I'm obsessed with.
And how would you say it differs throughout history? You can't see, but behind this wall there's a massive timeline of history. How would you say it differs from obviously the Victorian period to now? How has it changed, would you say?
Feminism?
Yeah.
Well, I think in the Victorian period, that was the birth of feminism in the form of the women's suffrage movement, mass feminism, organised on a mass scale. So you had the women's suffrage movement, but the different factions, so suffragists and suffragettes, calling for enfranchisement, so the vote. So in a sense, it was a single issue campaign in that they wanted the vote, but it was much broader than that as well, because it was about women's rights. I think now it's much more intersectional. I think there are some things that have always remained the same, things to do, debates around marriage, problems like domestic violence. It's still, I think that's one of the biggest feminist issues we're facing today, and that's always been a problem. So some of the same problems and discourses around sisterhood as well. So I'm interested in sisters and sisterhood in the Victorian period, and there was a big discourse and iconography about sorority and sisters and sisterhood, and I think that is still there today.
Oh, that's so cute.
Definitely a part of feminist discourse.
And
an awareness of how women can help each other and nurture each other. So I think it's become more intersectional, and that's definitely a good thing. So,
do you find that in the realm of this sister thing, do you find that that's still very prevalent today? And how do you find that within communities and things like that, it affects things like that?
Yeah, so I mean, as a mother, I've got two small children. I've been really aware of the female community that is around me, and that is there, whether you choose to access it or not, but it is there. And the sorority that's involved in maternity is very apparent to me. Women really want to create networks and create communities and nurture each other. And that's been a really pleasant surprise in my life, because sometimes motherhood can be quite isolating.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, and I found a whole new community through motherhood. And there's something about mothers, they're very open to being vulnerable. They're very open to helping each other. And, it's that motherhood is a kind of great leveler. Everyone will have their problems with motherhood in some way at some stage. And I think there's an awareness of that, and that we all lift each other up and normalize, messiness and non-performativity and all that stuff that I find really refreshing.
So again, speaking of all of these community things, what was one project that kind of like sparked you, that was like, this is what I want to do? So what was it, like the research project that consumed you in a way?
I think that was my PhD, which was on creative partnerships. And it started on creative partnerships between husband and wife. And I was really interested in that because I'm married myself, but I've obviously, marriage is historically a feminist issue. And I was looking into marriages as career enabling strategies for 19th century women writers and artists. So the idea that they got married, and a lot of women got married and then it kind of stopped their creative careers because they became mothers and wives. But these women entered marriages in order to kind of develop their creative careers, and they were marrying practicing writers and artists and forming partnerships with them. And I think the canniness of women is something that really attracted me to, like, okay, so women were consciously forming partnerships and networks to enhance their own profiles and their status and their professional success. And that's something that women still do today. Like, I think women are very savvy. I think they are resourceful. and I like to see that in the Victorian period, where women are often, there's a public perception of women as like the angel in the house, passive, submissive, and I'm like, no. They knew what they were doing.
That's us. Come on now.
So I got really interested in that, and that really sparked me, and that's what has sparked what I'm researching at the moment, which is how women, used sororal creative partnerships as professional networking strategies and career enabling strategies.
Is that a kind of a reason of like why you fell in love with your field? Like, is that where it all started?
Yeah, it was definitely like finding out that Victorian women were so, brave and powerful and clever in the way they organised, the women's societies and clubs and women's suffrage movements, and the way they fought in that campaign over all of those years to give us the rights that we have today is just phenomenal.
How do you think the way that they fought before is different from the way that they fight now? Because I feel like before, during the suffragette movement, there's this very big thing of like, it was all violent, it was all like really aggressive, compared to now peaceful protests. And how do you think it differs?
Well, the suffragists were peaceful protesters, and then when that proved to not be, getting them what they wanted, that's when they moved to more militant methods, and that's when it became violent, with window smashing and arson and everything like that. I mean, we still see that, don't we? Like, there is peaceful protesting, and then there's also setting fire to police cars and looting and everything. So you can see that sometimes the momentum forms in a certain way in society where it does get violent. I think that, frontline feminism today, is it violent? Is it like pacifist? I'm not sure. And then I guess, feminist climate activists, like feminism is bound up with that kind of activism, and activism is kind of more multifaceted now, as you say, but some of that's got violent, hasn't it?
I think as well, a lot of the issue is that people, they get really frustrated with it too easily. They just kind of think, oh, like, you're in my way, let me get to work, and stop blocking the road and things. I think they get too frustrated and they don't really realise what the core issue is, and they don't read into it. They're not informed, and I think that's a really, really big problem. So I'm glad that we have this space in university to be talking about these kind of things.
Definitely.
When you were growing up, I feel like everyone would kind of like had a book that shaped them. Like, what was that book for you? What would you recommend to a student?
Do you know, I feel like all the books I've ever read have shaped me in a way that all the people I've met, or at least all the friends I have shaped me. I really do feel like that. I guess it would have to be Victorian women's writing. The Brontes novels are really powerful. I find Christina Rossetti's poetry really powerful as well. I'm continually rediscovering, Victorian women's work, but this is about what kind of inspired me. In literature, I'd say Charlotte Perkins Gilman's The Yellow Wallpaper.
Wow. Yeah,
gotta go with that.
What about non-literature?
Helen Sixtoo's feminist theory.
Yeah.
She's creative and critical as a writer. I find her theoretical writing very poetic. But The Laugh of the Medusa by Hélène Cixous is something that I think everyone should read.
Yeah.
And that really informed my view of things through my degree and my postgraduate. You know, it's still something that I use. And it's got a very short essay, and it's freely available online.
Little promo.
Yeah.
So another really big important thing is I feel like every discipline is sort of changing, and especially now with like AI and ethics. So what is your stance on that? How do you think that's going to affect the future of knowledge?
Yeah,
in a way.
I think we have to work with AI. It's not going away.
Yeah.
And I think we can use it to our advantage as well, but we have to know how to do that, think about how to do that. And as it develops, you know, work together in academia to think about how that can support the humanities rather than undermine the humanities. You know, on a class level and on a teaching level, I think using Claude AI and things like that as a scoping exercise for, you know, what an author's written or what a good companion piece for another text might be is great. You can also run ideas through it and see what it comes out with and critique that. Yeah. Because it currently is not as good as when students write essays. Yeah. It's very general, it's not well cited, it's kind of generic and boring. Yeah. And when it has been submitted, which we're not allowed to do, we're not allowed to use AI in the writing of essays, but when it has been used, those essays are always poor quality because the human quality of, you know, really close analysis and innovative comparisons is not matched. Yeah. So like, I think the human imagination is still paramount and vital, and we can use AI tools to help us kind of think critically and for research purposes. It's good. But I think the digital humanities is really useful. So like digitized collections and online archives that we can work with now, you know, data visualization. So I work on networks, and so far it's been me kind of making connections between all these women, but I would love to find a data visualization tool that can help me kind of put that into a visual form. And those tools allow us to do that. So I think it's got great potential for us. We just need to harness that.
Yeah. Do you think that it will potentially change the way that we potentially like read books or like archive things, like from a history point of view?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's already happening. Yeah, like, you know, you used to go into an archive and sift through huge bundles of papers that were just random and stuffed into boxes. That was even in my kind of PhD. I did that. Now it's like you go on a system and someone's catalogued it, and you can see which letter you want to look into and what box it's in. Yeah. So already it's kind of enhanced the archival research process. Also, I can access collections and archives that are in the US online because someone's actually digitized those manuscript pages. You can't be a real life in the archive experience though, where you can smell the paper and all of that. It's just magic. But, you know, it's made a lot of collections and materials, historical materials as well, more accessible. And that's a good thing, I think. So yeah, I think it's already changing the way that we work.
I don't think progress is like linear. Yeah. So there's a lot of failure that goes into research and into learning. So what was one research project that you did that didn't necessarily, you know, progress or anything, but how did it help you progress as a person, as a lecturer? Yeah,
I've got a really standout example of that actually. So I submitted a journal article when I was writing my PhD to a journal. It was based on part of my PhD, and I thought it was really good at the time. But these journal articles are very academic and cutthroat. Yeah. And I got some brutal anonymous feedback from that. It was from two reviewers. Both of them were brutal, but I remember one of them wrote, "I just wish this was better."
Oh wow, that's very helpful.
I know, but so they completely tore it apart, and it completely changed my perspective of the expectations in academia. Made me push harder, and kind of made me go back to the drawing board and it didn't destroy my confidence at all. It actually gave me a thicker skin.
Good.
And my PhD supervisor at the time said, you know, just very flippantly, he was like, you got to grow a thicker skin. And that is so true, because it just means sometimes that it just means you've got to go back to the drawing board, rethink your approach, or, you know, do some more research. It's see it as a challenge rather than a defeat. And a thick skin, I think, is vital for academia and for life.
If only we could go back and talk to our younger selves. What is one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self, to your PhD self? What would you say?
I think I would go back to my BA, MA, PhD self, especially BA actually, and MA, and say that this is a really unique time in your life. There is no other time when you get to sit around a table with other people and talk about ideas. And that is your goal, to think critically about ideas in books or visual culture, and make connections between exciting texts, and make original comparisons, and push boundaries of canons and all those things. There is no other time, unless you go into academia. But even then, I have so much admin and research and other things to do that you know, teaching is the only time I really get to do it. And I love seminars for that reason. But you don't realise what a privileged position you're in until you hit the world of work. Because when you hit the world of work, you don't get to do that at that leisure anymore. And I think if I could go back, I would say, like, really throw yourself into this experience and enjoy every second of it, because it's a very unique, very precious, like, sacred time in your life.
Do you think that point specifically, like, shaped your ideas, shaped your thinking in the future? Yeah,
definitely. And I think knowledge exchange and ideas exchange, if that's a thing, was really important to me then, and is now, because sitting in a room and not just kind of formulating and expressing your own ideas, but listening to other people's, really builds on what you have, or changes the direction of what you're interested in, or, you know, sometimes completely subverts what you think. But, you know, the sharing of ideas, it was so crucial then, and I think still is to me now, and I'm constantly learning from other people.
Just to wrap it all up, you have a question from Miss Melanie. She has asked you, what is your favourite module to teach on the entire course, and why?
It's got to be the Gothic. It does. Not just because you're on the Gothic, but yeah, no, it's a really fun module to teach. It's always really popular. There's a lot of, like, present resonances of Gothic origins that, you know, I'm obsessed with true crime. I see echoes in true crime of Gothic origins and the Gothic evolutions through the 19th century and 20th century everywhere when I watch true crime. And I think this explosion of the interest in true crime is, you know, shows how pertinent and continually relevant the Gothic is. And I love kind of looking back, you know, in the same way that I love looking back over the history of and the development of feminism, from its origins till today. I like doing that with the Gothic. I like knowing about all the Gothic evolutions from its origins all through the centuries up to the present day, and understanding that evolution and transformation. So I always really enjoy that, and my students always come up with things that I haven't thought of, and, you know, they're watching things that I might not know about, and they will recommend me things to watch or read. So there's constantly, you know, things coming out, like, you know, the Emma Glass Mrs. Jekyll. That's quite recent, that's based on Jekyll and Hyde. So there's constant, you know, new publications, new films, new adaptations. There's the new Frankenstein. So it's constantly growing, all these permutations of Gothic figures and reinterpretations of Gothic texts that make it really exciting to teach.
And how do you think the different interpretations sort of, like, impact the course? Because obviously, like, the Frankensteins, that's what we're studying right now, and now it's opened up a whole new, like, generation of people who are still going to be interested in that and watching that. What do you think? How does that impact the course in a way?
I think it shows its relevance, and it also gives it more of a multimedia aspect, because I can say to my students, look, we've got the text, this is the original, and then look at all these adaptations. How has it evolved? How has it been reinterpreted or adapted for stage and screen? And transmediality is really interesting to me, how a text is, like, transposed into different media, and thinking about it in a more multidisciplinary way, as the Gothic is a multidisciplinary form, you know, but thinking about it beyond literature and kind of pushing those boundaries is really exciting, I think.
That is amazing. Do you have a question that you would like to give to the next
I do.
lecturer?
So this is my little hobby that I was doing right before this interview. It's a tiny little bookshelf, and I love miniatures. I'm a bit obsessed with miniatures. I have my mini books here as well. So my question to the next interviewee is, do you have a little hobby like this? Are you obsessed with miniatures or anything else? What do you do in your office in your own time or at home in your own time that's like a little hobby, little obsession that you have?
So thank you so much for listening, and thank you for joining me on this episode of Office Hours. I've been your host, Sofia Varela, and don't forget to follow and share and like and do all that kind of YouTube stuff. And tune in next week when I'll be interviewing the next lecturer. Thank you. Bye. Bosh. Done.
I love that. That was such a nice chat. It was so natural.
It
as
was.
well.